Good day to you. Good to see you today. I wanted to do something a little bit different today. Now, on some of the recent videos, a few comments have come up from people saying that they're not interested in progression staking systems or recovery staking systems where if your bet loses, your next bet increases to try and recover the losses. There are people who are adamant that they're only interested in level staking, that is, betting the same amount on per event or per run, however you want to define that. So I wanted to have a look and see if I could find something that would be suitable for people who like level staking. Now, I understand the appeal of level staking. It does limit your potential losses a little bit. I think it limits your potential wins a little bit, but there are certain situations where it's probably a better option. Now, I've been looking at greyhounds in particular for this, and some of the outside runners do show a little bit of value. Greyhound races do tend to have interesting results where dogs that are well back in the favouritism, 6th, 7th, 8th, they do tend to win. If the favourite gets off to a bad start or gets checked, it opens the race right up, and because there is quite a bit of bumping in a lot of races, you do tend to have some value on those less favoured runners, which if enough of them win, it can lead to a reasonable result. Your strike rate's going to be pretty low doing something like that, so in that case a progression staking system probably isn't the right approach, but flat staking might work if the value of the odds is better than the amount of runners that are winning. So over the last week or so I've been testing a few things, and various things haven't been working, some things have, but it did lead me to looking at specifically smaller field sizes and just the outsiders in the race. So let's have a look and see what I've settled on, what I'm currently testing, and see how that's going. So this is what I'm working with at the moment. This is a bot called Hedge Dog Bot. Its main job is dutching of greyhounds. It can do some hedging as well. So if you had, say, for example, you wanted to dutch the 4th and 5th favourite, but you wanted to hedge on the first, if the first wins, you break even, it can run calculations to do bets like that. I'm just doing straight out dutching. I could potentially look at hedging. It might be something to consider, but at the moment I'm just looking at dutching. Now, I've been trying a few things. The first few days worth of testing I don't actually have numbers for. I do know the first few days weren't great. I did save the numbers somewhere, don't know where, but so they're not they weren't too good the first few days. But the system I've settled on just at the moment, at least yesterday, worked pretty well. So I've got 3 systems running here. So in the first system, I'm looking at races with 4 runners, and I'm dutching the 3rd and 4th favourites. In the next one with 5 runners, I'm dutching the 4th and 5th, and then in the last one, if there's 6 runners, the 4th, 5th, and 6th favourite. There tends to be a little bit of value in the runners in the bottom half of the field. I'll come back to that and show you what I mean on that shortly, but let me just take you to some results from the last week of testing. Now, before I settled on what I'm doing at the moment, I tried something a little bit different, and that was dutching at sort of the top end of the market. So 1st and 2nd favourite, or 2nd and 3rd favourite, or 3rd and 4th favourite. The 1st and 2nds tended to do okay in Australia most of the time. You can see here the 7th, 8th, and 9th were pretty good. They had a little bit of profit, but the days which had losses, so the 6th had a $9 loss, the 12th had a $7 loss. They weren't particularly good. They wiped out the good days. In the UK, 1st and 2nd favourites, just dutching those. Yeah, there's 1 day of profit there, but there's some pretty big losses. 2nd and 3rd runners, there's 1 good day in Australia, but the rest, yeah, not good. The UK tended to have Slightly better results on some days, but also a pretty heavy loss in there as well. The third and fourth favourites were an absolute disaster in Australia and New Zealand, as you can see. In the UK, third and fourth tended to be a little bit better, but still some days where that wasn't good. Now, that was not really taking into account the size of the market. It was just, I think I had that set, as long as there are at least 4 dogs in the race for all of these, it really didn't work out particularly well. So I did, looking at those results and seeing where they were, I did look and see some value in the outsiders of the races, that is the bottom half of the races. Now this is what I had yesterday. Now bearing in mind this is all 50 cents stake per race. So in the races with the 4 runners, Dutching the third and the fourth, there was only one race in Australia and New Zealand yesterday that met the criteria that had 4 runners. So it met the amount of money criteria in the market and had 4 runners. That was a loss, 50 cents. But in the UK, it actually did all right, $1.87 up. I saw no qualifying races yesterday with 5 runners. I'm sure there would have been some races somewhere, but they either didn't meet the criteria for the Dutching because they didn't meet, they weren't going to be able to be profitable enough, or they didn't have enough money in the market. One of those two. 6 runners in Australia and New Zealand. The races with 6 runners up $2.05. In the UK, down 71 cents. But overall, both of those systems turned a profit. $1.37 on the 4 runners, $1.34 on the 6 runners. It's one day of testing. It's not enough to say, hey, this works wonderfully, but it's a good start. And we'll see how it goes through the week. My intention here is basically to run this for a week and then see how it's working. Now, let's have a look and see what I've actually got set up here. So we'll look at the 6 runners system. So in this, as I said, we're Dutching the 4th, 5th, and 6th favourites. I'm looking anything price of between $2 and $5 now. The 4th, 5th, and 6th, they're never going to be $2 unless there's something very wrong with the market. I could probably set that to a little bit higher, but maybe $4 would probably be a good number there. But ultimately, it doesn't matter too much because there's another criteria here, which is the minimum profit percentage. And that's basically saying I want to get at least 25% out of this race. Now, 4th, 5th, 6th favourites, you're probably looking at something more like 200 or 300% if you win that race. And what I mean by that is, say you've got the 50-cent stake, which I'm doing. If you had a 100% profit, you would win 50 cents. So you'd make a profit of 50 cents. In this case, I'm looking for at least 25%. So we're looking at 12.5 cents. And this is taking commission into account as well. So this is after commission. But as I said, generally you're looking at something along the lines of 300%, something like that. Let me load a race, just any race at random, and show you an example of that. So let's have a look at, say, race 4 at Bulli. Now race 4 at Bulli has 8 runners, so it's not quite perfect for what we're talking about here, but I can still use it, and I can grab some odds out of some other races to show you what I'm talking about. So let's just pull this wager back to 50 cents and sort the market in terms of favoritism. Let's just pretend that the 7th and 8th here, they don't exist. I'm going to turn off live odds so that this doesn't update, so these odds don't move around on us. With 6 runners in this race, I'd expect to see some slightly higher, I've miscounted this, there's 7. Oh dear. So ignore number 8, Hot Pockets. Nonetheless, with 6 runners in the race, I'd still expect to see probably a slightly higher odds here on the 6th favourite and probably a little bit higher on the 5th favourite. But nonetheless, let's pretend there's 6 here. And let's tick the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. With these odds, if one of these were to win, Dutching this, we'd be looking at somewhere around 150, 160% profit. Now that's taking into account the commission on the race. It's also taking into account this safety setting here, which is the tick offset. Now there tends to not be a lot of volume in the market on these lower ranked runners. So I've actually got this set to try to get a price that's lower than what's currently being offered. So 5 tick offset on these. 5 is probably a little bit more than I need, but it does give me a better chance of being matched. And the bot is looking at the possible profit if it was matched at the lower price. If I just pull this back to the prices that are actually here, you can see the profit numbers start to actually increase. So if it were to get matched at these prices, you'd be looking at something closer to 200% profit. So from your 50-cent bet, you're looking at making $1 after commission. Now the bot will try to place these bets at lower odds. It'll probably get matched somewhere close to the advertised odds. So you're probably still looking at hitting about 200%, but the bot will not attempt to place the bets unless these percentage profit values here with this tick offset meet the minimum requirements that are set here. So in this case, 25%. Now let me go and grab some odds out of yesterday. While we're here, this is the end of the UK day, early this morning Australian time. Now the UK day actually started off pretty poorly, but you can see at the end of the day it started to turn positive. Had quite a few winners almost in a row. Now these are all, as I said, 50-cent bets. You can see it's made on some of these, 86 cents or 67 cents. That's still more than 100%. The best one here is $3.11. We're looking at more than 600% profit there. So let me just load up that race. Nottingham. So we had 3 runners in this race, which means there was, we bet 3 runners in the race, which means there were 6 runners. Dog race with 16 runners, that'd be something. There were 6 runners in the race, and as you can see, the odds that were on these runners were actually much higher than what I'm seeing. So just from that 7 dog race. So let's just pull these in. So 14, 50, 32, and 34. So 14, 50, 32, and 34. So you can see the bot was expecting at least almost 500% profit, almost $2.50-ish. It ended up getting $3.11 overall after the commission. And that was with the 4th favourite at $14.50 winning the race. So it was actually this one here. So the bot was expecting $2.48 profit after commission with the tick offset, but because it got matched there, it ended up with $3.11. As I said, the odds on these less favoured runners tend to provide some value, better than their strike rate, because on dogs, people tend to gravitate towards the favourites. That provides an opportunity, especially at level staking. I wouldn't recommend trying this with any sort of progression staking because the strike rate is quite low, so you would be looking at some pretty big increases in bet size. But at level staking, if the odds that you're getting can beat the strike rate, then you're doing well. And that's certainly what I saw yesterday. Now, this I've got running on Australia, New Zealand and UK. Today so far I've seen 2 races by the looks of it. When I started looking at this earlier, I'd only seen 1 race. It was Manawatu race 7, New Zealand, which was a loss. Murray Bridge has happened as well, race 11, also a loss. Well, we'll see where the rest of the races for the day go. But yesterday, Australia and New Zealand started off pretty well. So that's what I'm doing. Now, this bot also has the option, as you can see from this panel that I'm looking at here, you can do this manually if you want. So if you had a strategy you wanted to do and run it manually and check the numbers yourself, you can do that. If I just go back to live odds here, you can see here it starts to update the odds. I'll just resort this. So you can see the odds have moved a little bit. So as the value has come up a little bit on these runners, but nonetheless, there's a 7-dog race. I'm not going to do a 7-dog race. Why am I not doing bigger fields? Quite simply, with a smaller field, I think you have a better chance of getting one of the outsiders to win. With a bigger field, the favoured runners tend to have a slightly better chance of winning simply because there's more of them. With the smaller field, all you really need is for a favourite to not get off to a good start, or maybe one of the outsiders to get off to a good start, or a little bit of bumping which checks some of the favoured runners, and you've got a good chance of one of those outsiders winning. The smaller the field, the better the chance of that happening. Now I'm running on the 4, 5 and 6 dog races. I'm not doing smaller fields than that. This gets a handful of races in Australia and New Zealand. Not many, but a handful. It gets most of the UK races. But nonetheless, it still has to meet the criteria, and the other criteria it has to meet, I need at least $5,000 in the race to show there is actually a bit of liquidity in there. So if you're doing pounds, that'd be 2,500. I'm going 15 seconds before the off. Now I'm going 15 because Australia and New Zealand money comes in very late in these races. You can see here where it's just past start time for that below race, and it's just got over 10,000 now. But if I look at, say, Townsville, which is coming up in 3 minutes, 2 minutes away from the race, there's only $500 in it. That'll jump up significantly in the last minute. But I want to give it enough time to have a chance at getting the required liquidity. And 15 seconds before the jump is certainly enough time to see that and to get the runners matched. So that's where things are up to at the moment. A reasonable first day. We'll see if that continues over the week. I have seen that pattern with some of the UK races where some days the end of the day is quite bad for the favourites, so that may in fact turn out to be a good thing for this system. But we'll see. I'll keep running this over the week, and I'll come back in a week and we'll see where things are up to. Until then, take care. See you again soon.